You're standing at the edge of everything you've ever wanted. You can see it. You can almost taste it. Your dreams are so close that if you just reached out one more time, stretched yourself a little further, pushed through one more wall of resistance, you'd break through. But you won't. You'll quit, just like you quit last time, and the time before that, and every single time before that when things got hard, when the path got dark, when the doubt started whispering in your ear that maybe you're not good enough, maybe this isn't for you. That's the brutal truth most people will never admit to themselves. They're not failing because they lack talent. They're not failing because they don't have the right opportunities or the right connections or the right circumstances. They're failing because they quit. They give up right before the miracle happens. They stop pushing right before the wall crumbles. They surrender right before the battle turns in their favor. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying the most successful people in history. And you know what he discovered? The one quality that separated the winners from everyone else wasn't genius. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even hard work. It was persistence. The ability to keep going when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to stop. The willingness to take one more step when you can't see the path ahead. The courage to swing the hammer one more time when you've already swung it 1,000 times and the rock hasn't cracked. Most people never develop this quality. They start strong. They have all the enthusiasm in the world. They make their plans, set their goals, declare their intentions to everyone who will listen. And then reality hits them in the face, hard. The excitement fades. The obstacles appear. The criticism starts. The doubt creeps in. And slowly, quietly, without even realizing what they're doing, they begin to give up. Not all at once. Nobody wakes up and decides to abandon their dreams in a single moment. It happens gradually. Like a slow leak that drains all the life out of their ambitions until one day, they look up and realize they've become exactly what they swore they'd never be. Another person who talks about what they're going to do someday while doing nothing today. Right now, before we go any deeper into this, I need you to do something. If this message is hitting you where you live, if you're feeling that uncomfortable recognition that maybe, just maybe, lack of persistence has been your problem all along, hit that like button. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're ready to face this truth. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now, because what we're building here is a community of people who refuse to quit, who refuse to settle, who refuse to let their dreams die quietly in the darkness of giving up. Let's talk about why most people stop too early. Let's dig into this wound and see what's really underneath all the excuses and justifications we create for ourselves. Because here's what happens. You start something new. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's a fitness goal, maybe it's learning a new skill or building a relationship or creating something meaningful. In the beginning, you're fueled by novelty and excitement. Every small step forward feels like progress. Every little win validates your decision to start. You're riding high on the possibility of what could be. But then something shifts. The newness wears off. The initial excitement fades. The progress slows down. You hit your first real obstacle. Your first serious setback. Your first moment of genuine doubt about whether you can actually do this thing you set out to do. And that's when most people make the fatal decision. They interpret this difficulty as a sign. They convince themselves that if it's this hard, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe this isn't their path. Maybe they should try something else, something easier, something that doesn't require this much struggle. This is the lie that kills more dreams than any external obstacle ever could. The belief that if something is right for you, it should be easy. That if you're truly talented or truly meant for success, the path should unfold smoothly before you. That resistance and difficulty are signs you're on the wrong track rather than signs you're doing something worth doing. The truth is exactly the opposite. Everything worth achieving requires you to push through massive resistance. Every single person who's ever accomplished anything meaningful has faced moments, days, months, sometimes years when continuing seemed impossible. When every logical reason said to quit. When all the evidence suggested they were wasting their time, but they didn't stop. Not because they were superhuman, not because they had some special gift the rest of us lack, but because they understood something fundamental about how success actually works in the real world. Success doesn't come to those who are talented. It comes to those who persist long enough for their talent to develop. Success doesn't come to those who have great ideas. It comes to those who execute their mediocre ideas persistently enough to refine them into greatness. Success doesn't come to those who want it most. It comes to those who are willing to keep wanting it, keep working for it, keep believing in it long after everyone else has moved on to the next shiny object, Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he created a working light bulb. 10,000 times? Can you even imagine that? Can you picture yourself failing at something 10,000 times and still showing up for attempt number 10,001? Most people can't. Most people quit after 10 failures. After 100 if they're particularly determined. But 10,000? That requires a level of persistence that most people simply don't possess, because they've never developed it. And that's the critical insight here. Persistence isn't something you're born with. It's not a genetic trait that some people have and others don't. It's a quality you build, a muscle you strengthen, a skill you develop through practice and decision and conscious choice every single day. You become persistent by persistently choosing to continue. You develop the ability to push through by pushing through. There's no other way. But let's get real about what stops people. Because it's not just laziness. It's not just lack of willpower. There are deeper forces at work here. Psychological mechanisms that sabotage us in subtle ways we rarely recognize until it's too late. Fear is the first assassin of persistence. Not the obvious fear of failure that everyone talks about. The subtle fear. The fear of what success might actually demand from you. The fear of who you'll have to become to achieve what you want. The fear of leaving behind the identity you've constructed. The comfortable story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. Because here's what nobody tells you about pursuing real success. It requires you to die and be reborn as someone different. The person who achieves your dreams will not be the person you are right now. They'll think differently. They'll act differently. They'll have different habits, different beliefs, different responses to obstacles and setbacks. And somewhere deep inside, you know this. You know that persistence means transformation. And transformation is terrifying because it means killing of parts of yourself you've grown attached to, even the parts that are holding you back. If this is resonating with you, if you're starting to see yourself in this mirror we're holding up, leave a comment right now. Tell me what you're persisting through. Tell me what you're committed to no matter what. Because when you declare it publicly, when you put it out into the world, you create accountability. You create a stake in the ground that makes it harder to quit when things get difficult. Doubt is the second killer of persistence. Not doubt about whether you can do it, though that's part of it. The deeper doubt. The doubt about whether it matters. Whether your goal is actually worth all this effort and struggle and sacrifice. Whether you're chasing something meaningful, or just running after an illusion that will leave you empty even if you achieve it. This doubt is particularly insidious because it disguises itself as wisdom. It presents itself as mature perspective, as realistic thinking, as the voice of reason telling you to stop wasting your time on pipe dreams and get practical about life. But here's what you need to understand about this doubt. It's not wisdom. It's fear wearing a disguise. It's your primitive brain trying to pull you back to safety, to the known, to the comfortable mediocrity you're trying to escape. Because persistence is dangerous. Not physically dangerous, but psychologically dangerous. Every day you persist in pursuing something difficult, you're betting on yourself. You're declaring that you believe in your vision more than you believe in the status quo. You're rejecting the safety of surrender for the uncertainty of continued effort. And your brain hates this. Your brain wants you safe and comfortable and not taking risks that might result in pain or disappointment or public failure. So it generates doubt. Sophisticated, convincing doubt that sounds exactly like the voice of mature wisdom. And most people listen to this voice. They mistake it for insight when it's actually just fear. And they quit. They walk away. They convince themselves they're being smart, being realistic, being practical, when really they're just being scared. Temporary defeat is the third great destroyer of persistence. Because here's what happens when you're really going for something big. You don't fail once and then succeed. You don't struggle for a while and then break through cleanly into victory. You experience what Napoleon Hill called temporary defeat. You hit walls. You face setbacks. You watch your plans fall apart. You see your efforts produce no results or worse, negative results that leave you in a deeper hole than when you started. And in those moments, when you're face down in the dirt wondering why you ever started this journey in awe, it feels permanent. It feels like final defeat. It feels like the universe is telling you to stop. But it's not permanent. It's temporary. That's the key distinction that separates those who make it from those who don't. The successful people understand that defeat is an event, not an identity. It's something that happens, not something you are. They look at temporary defeat as feedback, as information, as a necessary part of the process. They expect it. They prepare for it. They don't interpret it as a sign they should quit. They interpret it as a sign they need to adjust, to learn, to grow, to try a different approach. The unsuccessful people do the opposite. They take temporary defeat personally. They internalize it. They let it define them. One failure becomes evidence that they're a failure. One setback becomes proof they're not cut out for success. One period of struggle becomes the story they tell themselves about why they can't do what they set out to do. And then they quit. And then they spend the rest of their lives wondering what might have been if only they'd kept going just a little bit longer. So how do you build real persistence? How do you develop the quality that will carry you through the inevitable storms and setbacks and moments of crushing doubt? It starts with a decision. Not a casual wish or a vague intention. A real decision. The kind of decision that cuts off all other possibilities. The kind of decision where you burn the boats behind you so retreat is not an option. You decide what you're going to achieve, and you commit to the decision with such totality that quitting doesn't even register as an option anymore. Most people never make this kind of decision. They make conditional decisions. They say, I'll do this as long as it's not too hard, or I'll pursue this until something better comes along, or I'll keep going as long as I'm seeing results. These aren't decisions. These are negotiations with reality where you're trying to get what you want without fully committing to the price required to get it. And reality doesn't negotiate. Success doesn't negotiate. Achievement doesn't care about your conditions and limitations and desire to keep one foot in the escape hatch in case things get uncomfortable. Subscribe to this channel right now if you're ready to make the real decision. If you're ready to commit fully to what you want without conditions or escape plans or backup options. Because what we're building here is different from the soft motivational content that makes you feel good but doesn't change anything. We're here to face hard truths. We're here to do the difficult work. We're here to become the kind of people who persist when everyone else quits. After you make the decision, you need to create a definite plan. Not a perfect plan. Not a plan that accounts for every possible obstacle. Just a plan. A clear, written, specific plan of action that tells you what you need to do today, this week, this month to move toward your goal. Most people fail at persistence because they're trying to persist without direction. They're just showing up and hoping something good happens. They're putting in effort, but they don't know if it's the right effort. They're working, but they're not working strategically. And when you don't have a plan, when you don't have a clear path forward, persistence becomes exponentially harder because you're not just battling obstacles and setbacks. You're also battling confusion and uncertainty about whether you're even moving in the right direction. Your plan doesn't have to be brilliant. It just has to exist. And it has to be definite, specific, written down, time-bound, actionable. This is the map that will guide you when the fog of doubt and difficulty rolls in and you can't see 3 feet in front of you. When you can't trust your feelings or your motivation or your confidence, you can trust your plan. You can take the next action on the plan even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Then you need to cultivate burning desire, not mild interest, not casual preference. Burning desire, the kind of desire that keeps you up at night and wakes you up in the morning. The kind of desire that makes you willing to sacrifice comfort and convenience and the approval of others. The kind of desire that is stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than temporary defeat. This desire is the fuel that powers persistence. Without it, you'll quit. You might not quit immediately, but eventually, when the going gets rough enough, you'll decide it's not worth it and you walk away. But with burning desire, quitting becomes harder than continuing. With burning desire, giving up feels like dying. With burning desire, you'll find ways to keep going that you never knew existed. You'll discover reserves of strength and creativity and determination that surprise even you. Because desire this intense doesn't just motivate you. It transforms you. It makes you resourceful. It makes you resilient. It makes you unstoppable. You also need to surround yourself with people who support your persistence. This is non-negotiable. If everyone in your life is telling you to quit, to be realistic, to stop wasting your time, you will eventually listen to them. Maybe not consciously, maybe not immediately, but their doubt will seep into your mind. Their skepticism will become your internal dialogue. Their fear will become your limitation. You cannot maintain persistence in isolation or in an environment that's actively working against your commitment. Find people who believe in what you're doing. Find people who are pursuing their own difficult goals with the same level of commitment you're trying to develop. Find mentors who have achieved what you're trying to achieve and can tell you from experience that the difficult period you're in right now is normal, expected, survivable. These people will hold you accountable when your commitment wavers. They'll remind you of your reasons when you forget. They'll provide perspective when you're too deep in the struggle to see clearly. And you need to develop the habit of continuous learning and adaptation. Persistence doesn't mean doing the same thing over and over hoping for different results. That's not persistence. That's insanity. Real persistence means staying committed to your goal while remaining flexible about your methods. When something isn't working, you figure out why and you try something else. When you hit an obstacle you can't overcome directly, you find a way around it. When your current approach reaches its limit, you learn new skills and develop new capabilities that allow you to progress further. This is what separates blind stubbornness from intelligent persistence. Stubborn people keep banging their heads against the same wall forever. Persistent people find a ladder or a sledgehammer, or they go around the wall, or they learn to climb, or they build a new path. They don't give up on the destination. They just refuse to stay stuck using methods that clearly aren't working. Leave a comment right now about the biggest obstacle standing between you and your goal. Name it, claim it. Because when you bring something into the light, when you stop pretending it doesn't exist or isn't that big a deal, you can actually start dealing with it. You can start figuring out how to overcome it or go around it or transform it into something that works for you instead of against you. Most importantly, you need to reframe failure in your mind. As long as you see failure as something terrible, something to be avoided at all costs, something that means you're inadequate or incapable, you will never develop true persistence. Because the path to any significant achievement is paved with failures, not occasional failures, constant failures, daily failures, failures so numerous you stop counting them. If you're not failing regularly, you're not pushing hard enough. You're not taking big enough risks. You're playing it too safe to ever achieve anything remarkable. The successful people don't fail less than everyone else. They fail more. They just don't stop. They don't interpret failure as a message to quit. They interpret it as tuition they're paying for the education required to succeed. Every failure teaches them something. Every setback reveals something. Every defeat shows them what doesn't work so they can eliminate that approach and try something else. They collect failures like data points, using each one to refine their strategy and sharpen their approach and increase their chances of eventual success. When you can look at failure this way, when you can see it as information rather than identity, as feedback rather than fate, persistence becomes so much easier. You're not carrying the weight of shame and disappointment and self-judgment every time something doesn't work out. You're just collecting evidence about what to do differently next time. You're just running experiments and noting the results. You're just learning at high speed through intensive practice and repeated attempts. Let me tell you something that might sting but needs to be said. The life you're living right now is the result of your level of persistence up to this point. If you're not where you want to be, if you haven't achieved what you know you're capable of achieving, if you're living below your potential and you know it, it's because you quit too soon on something important. Maybe multiple things. Maybe you quit on yourself. You had a dream once. Maybe you still have it, buried under layers of disappointment and rationalization. You started moving toward it. You took some steps. You made some effort. And then it got hard, and you stopped. You told yourself a story about why it was okay to stop, why it was actually the smart thing to do, why persistence in that situation would have been foolish. But deep down, in the quiet moments when you're alone with yourself and can't hide behind the excuses, you know the truth. You quit too early. You gave up before the breakthrough. You surrendered right before victory. And here's the good news, the liberating news that can change everything starting right now. That pattern doesn't have to continue. You're not condemned to be a quitter forever just because you've quit in the past. Persistence is a quality you can develop starting today. This moment, right now, you can decide that whatever you're working on now, whatever goal you're pursuing, whatever dream you're chasing, you will not quit. Not when it gets hard. Not when you face obstacles. Not when people criticize you. Not when progress slows down. Not when doubt whispers in your ear. Not when fear tries to pull you back. You will persist. You will continue. You will find a way or make a way. This is the decision that changes everything. This is the commitment that separates your future from your past. This is the moment when you stop being someone who talks about what they're going to do and start being someone who does it. No matter what, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many times they have to get back up after falling down. But you have to mean it. You can't make this commitment casually, like a New Year's resolution you'll forget about in 2 weeks. You have to make it with the full force of your being. You have to make it so deeply that it becomes part of who you are, not just something you're trying to do. You have to make it in a way that burning your bridges, cutting a retreat, going all in without reservation or backup plans. Because here's the reality about persistence and success. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they quit. That's it. That's the whole story. They had the talent. They had the opportunity. They had the resources. What they didn't have was the persistence to keep going when the easy part ended and the real work began. You have everything you need to succeed at whatever you're trying to achieve. Maybe not right now. Maybe you need to develop new skills, or acquire new knowledge, or build new relationships, or save more money. But the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not insurmountable. It's crossable. The bridge that spans that gap is called persistence. And you either build that bridge one day at a time, one action at a time, one decision to continue at a time, or you stay on this side of the gap forever, looking across at what could have been, should have been, would have been if only you hadn't quit. Your success is not being killed by lack of talent or lack of opportunity or lack of resources or bad luck or unfair circumstances. Your success is being killed by lack of persistence, by your willingness to give up when things get difficult, by your habit of interpreting temporary defeat as permanent failure, by your tendency to quit right before the breakthrough happens. But today, that ends. Today, you become someone different, someone who persists, someone who continues, someone who gets knocked down and gets back up, someone who faces obstacles and finds ways through them, or around them, or over them, someone who commits to their goals with such totality that quitting is simply not an option anymore. Hit that like button one more time if you're making this commitment. Subscribe if you're ready to become the kind of person who finishes what they start and achieves what they set out to achieve. Comment and tell me what you're committing to persist through no matter what. Because this is where everything changes. This is where your future stops being a repetition of your past and starts being something entirely new. This is where you stop letting lack of persistence kill your success and start building the life you know you're capable of living. The only question left is, will you persist? Will you continue when it gets hard? Will you push through when everyone else quits? Will you become one of the rare individuals who actually achieves what they set out to achieve because they refused to give up until they got there? That's the question, and how you answer it with your actions every single day moving forward will determine everything about the life you end up living. Choose persistence. Choose to continue. Choose to become unstoppable. Your success is waiting on the other side of that decision.